Hello, rugby mates, and welcome to another podcast with myself, Campo, and the great rugby brain that is Will Greenwood, belter of a round two.
I want a little straw poll with our viewers. Who points with their middle finger? Don't do it.
I tell you,
don't point with your middle finger.
I say this all the time. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. It's the
enough.
Longest finger.
Right.
It's the pointiest finger. That's why we point with the middle
15 years,
finger.
it still irritates me. It's top of my list to name one. 763.
I'll pipe down.
Yeah, sorry.
We've got look at the lion stash we've got next to us.
Yeah, Canterbury supporting us, throwing a couple of bits and pieces. We'll have a competition later. We don't quite know what the question is yet, but thanks for all the comments so far.
Yeah.
Fascinating uptake. I think it's sort of the vote has been stick to technicals, stick to rugby.
Our banter's not good enough.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Although what did I say on TalkSport this morning? It's the Calcutta Cup, and we're hoping England will win because the last time we did, the Dead Sea was only ill.
Very good. That's good.
Do you like that? Jeff
I
Stelling
really like that.
Yeah, I like that one.
Well,
It's not mine.
No, I was going to say, yeah. You haven't come up with that.
No. So yeah, it's great, and certainly on the TikTok stuff and the socials, it's going great.
Yeah.
So we'll stick to understand your USP, detail on the rugby, so that you can join any pub conversation and sort of feel like you know what you're talking about.
Like it, Greens, like it. So, order of play today, we're going to go England-France at the end of the pod.
Yes.
We're going to start with a very wet Rome.
Yeah.
And do you know what? The rain came down, and I thought to myself, this is probably quite a good thing for Wales, and I couldn't have been more wrong.
Beaten basically in most departments. I mean, it was they scored a couple of lovely tries late on. Say lovely, a couple of consolation tries late on, but the reality 19-3, game dead, final score 22-15, flattering to Wales, which then got me watching a couple of things. Watch Ken Owens on Welsh TV, and it's worth discussing. He said, look, there's no point changing the coach. We did a review on Gatland. We got rid of Wayne Pivac. It's not about the coach. It's the strategy. Where is the strategy? Where is the board? And so I went back to my great old friend, Dame Amanda Blanc, who used to be chair of the PRB and the WRU, and she left in November 21. In her resignation letter, she said, there's been 2 years of board meetings and we've discussed a museum, but never a strategy. You have a problem. And before anyone wants to know who Dame Amanda Blanc is, she's one of the very few female FTSE 100 CEOs. It's got a 14 billion market cap. It was up 15% in 1 year on her watch.
Wow.
Largest insurer in the UK. And the board questioned her competence at the time to run a 100 million turnover business. I can go on. She's talked about the governance was ruthlessly exposed in her resignation letter, and a transparency and corporate governance not fit for modern society. Now, they've got their house in order, or are trying to get their house in order. They're clearly not going far enough. So what on earth do they do? What is the strategy? So I've spoken to a couple of people off the record. Some of the issues that they have to come over, there'll be a WRU view, and then there'll be a regional view, of which there'll be private owners with self-interest. The people I've spoken to, 4 regions should go to 3. Possible merger between Cardiff and Newport. Clearly they need more collaboration. They need more central contact, which is what they're doing with the new centralised approach, a little bit like the English Rugby Union. A 5-year collaboration between the regions. In reality, the Welsh clubs hate the URC. They don't turn up, they don't watch. They want an Anglo-Welsh relationship. So part of the reason they might fight to keep 4 for longer is more seats at the table if it goes Anglo-Welsh. But what would that offer the English clubs? You don't know at the moment. You think, why would we do that? It would probably take place where the Premiership Cup takes place. Those great old rivalries that a lot of our junior viewers may not understand, which used to be huge for the Welsh rugby regions and clubs. They would be massive. They get 3 times more money on home games and footfall and merchandise when they play English teams than when they play Leinster in the URC, for which there is very little interest. How might you do it? 2 conferences of 7 or a Premiership? So it's a massive challenge for them. How about as that get? Schools. They'd want to copy the sort of Irish model, which has St Michael's and Blackrock and Gonzo's and all those schools that are almost feeder schools. And when you play St Michael's College, you feel like you're playing Leinster. University rugby in this country, I think, is super strong. for a variety of reasons. One, it keeps boys and girls in the sport longer, rather than leaving school and nowhere to go, perhaps don't join or don't go back to their local club. So make university rugby enticing. The quality of it is excellent. And then the maturity levels, and I mean that really, people physically and mentally, rugby players mature at different speeds, and we all want to play for England at 18, like Johnny Wilkinson. But some of us, 25, have to wait for Nick Easter. I don't know how old he was, 29, and it goes on. So some players mature. So promote that university stuff where you keep them in the game longer, and that collaboration there. In Wales, I think the way through might be through schools and supporting and really going after making 4 or 5 big schools investment to create a super schools cup. So
have they not done that? There was an idea to invest in the schools, or have I picked up fag ends there? That's been talked about.
Talked about, and yet that's one of the possible agreements going on. We're sort of seeing quite a few issues going on in Wales with a couple of possible strategies out of it. Feel like at the moment, if you change coaches, it's deck chairs and tie tie.
Yeah.
To pick up on what Ronan O'Gara, I love listening to Ronan on the telly talk, but the spine of that team isn't there, hasn't got the maturity, sort of 2, 5, 8, 9, 10, 15. They need to find those young lads and they will be paying. But the longer term issue, it's not a 4-6 weeks fix. It's the board coming up with a strategy that they'll hopefully implement in terms of the regions in the shorter term to breathe life. It's like CPR, and it's a very real danger that it just continues to drift into obscurity. And as with all things, you're competing for eyeballs and you're competing for the next generation. And there are so many sports on offer for kids to do now, and if it suddenly looks like it's a sport that there's no success, there's no hope of success, there's minimal professional remuneration reward, then it's how difficult is that to change? So that's just so that we explore a little bit of the strategy behind it before we then look perhaps at what went on in the game. Jack Morgan hasn't made my 15 of the week, but you can call me Pierre Pumpy Pants. I think that's from Viz or from a league. I don't know. You can call me any name you want under the sun if Jack Morgan isn't a British and Irish Lion. Jack Morgan's a 9 out of 10. I sort of feel the last people that Wales should blame for what's going on right now are the 15, 20 to 24-year-olds out on the field who are giving everything for that jersey, but just don't have the calibre. Thomas Williams, perhaps another Lion, but after that you're sort of looking at a team that need to try and just get some cohesion, some time together, and understand that they've been on the road in their opening 2, and they do have 2 games in Cardiff, and try to take something out of those, even though the first one's Ireland. The goal that they'll be looking to smash the ball in the back of the net to, which would almost save their season, is England.
Yeah, of course. You gave me the odds a couple of minutes before this pod started, Greens, and Ireland are 50-1 on to beat Wales in Cardiff. I think that pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and for someone who grew up, like England didn't win in Cardiff for 28 years. And it was a tough trip, and you think of some of the greats that have played. You just 50-1 on is almost New Zealand v Romania sorts of odds. Germany against San Marino in football. If you're trying to think of, well, what does that mean in another sport? So that's where we are. So we do need to have a little look at Italy. They got Capozzo in the game with a little try up the right-hand side.
The way that they exploited that space was because the scrum got decimated. They got wheeled the wrong way.
Yeah, so James Botham couldn't get away from that on the technical capacity. Yeah. We said it last week, they're an accumulator of points because of the king. What was Gonzalo Casado's pub quiz question?
He was a top scorer in the World Cup for Argentina.
In what year?
1999.
Not just for Argentina. He was top scorer in the whole World Cup, and he was a points machine. And so the threes of Tommaso Allen, which, by the way, in Fantasy League everyone loves him because he plays fullback, but you can pick him as a 10. So the sneaky little fantasy league one that everyone's getting him in, he gets his threes. He also gets a little bit of counter-attacks at the back. He's quite a... It's why Marcus Smith's also now, people are picking him at 10 in their fantasy league team because he's at the back.
Feels like a cheat code, this.
But yeah, little cheat. And some people are starting to play without props.
This is rugby on paper, isn't it? Because you sort of got to play with props.
But... Yes, correct. You sort of feel like the fantasy rugby app have got to fix that, and you have to pick 15 players. What else? Canone, outstanding, and their bench is strong. Their front, I tell you, their front rowers. Again, we've always said Italian have a strong front row, but now I'm talking about their front row in the loose. Fischetti, Nicotera, and Ferrari, and they get around the field, they chop tackle, they make turnovers. Part of the reason Italy is growing as a competitive animal is around the field. They're winning the scrum pens. Fischetti won a scrum pen on his loose head side again, and they're still then making tackles and contributing and handling.
Can I just tell you a quick one? The thing that impressed me about Italy was, and I started this with the weather. I looked at it, hammering it down, and I actually thought, this might suit. Just slow the game down. Wales are very used to these type of conditions, and yet Italy played real smart rugby, so physical. And when we think about Italy now, they've won 4 out of their last 6 games, 1 draw, 1 defeat in the Six Nations. Yeah, I mean, they are transformed. I mean, let me just ask you this question off the back of that. Do you think that Italy are going to... they're definitely going to ask questions, but do you think they've got another win in them this Six Nations, given what they've got coming up?
I mean, does France implode, now lost and the Grand Slam's out the window? Does Galtier throw his toys out the pram and have a pop at people for dropping balls and throwing loose passes? So... Italy against France, and they've beaten them before. That's the Sunday afternoon game.
And a draw last time.
It's a stretch, but at Twickenham, no.
Never beaten us?
Never. They're the one country that haven't, and you just sort of feel, I cannot see them going to Twickenham. And then at home, on the final weekend, it's Ireland. I mean, do I see them winning another game from here, Italy? I don't.
Can we agree, though, that it's not a formality? We don't feel like every one of those games is a formality in favour of the sides playing, or do you actually still think it is a formality?
I feel they can trouble those teams for 30 to 40 minutes at that level, but with those fixtures, those specific fixtures, France at home, Ireland at home, England away, I think every single one of those teams will expect a 5-point win.
Fine. Not 50-1 though.
No, considering where probably 3 years ago they were saying Italy should be out of the Six Nations, the spotlight is not on them anymore.
No, 100%.
The spotlight has moved, with Wales dropping below Georgia in the world rankings. The spotlight has moved to Wales.
I tell you what, you'd feel nervous, wouldn't you, as a Welshman, if Wales were being forced to play
Georgia home
and away for at the end of this Six Nations. I think that would be a significant challenge.
We go back to bookmakers. The favourites for that game right now would be Georgia.
Yeah. Wow.
They've got so many players playing in the top 14.
I'm going to give you a quick stat from this weekend, which was Sam Warburton's, which was 13 first phase plays at Wales against Italy in that game, and they made 1 metre. And for me, that is one of the stories really of Wales this Six Nations. Is it feels like they just do not have the carriers. They do not have the cavalry to make dominant carries. Yeah. And when you're playing rugby like that...
And your confidence, and we might talk about confidence when we get to Ireland, your confidence is so low that you're always worried what the negative implications of what you do. So you think about it in a very secure fashion. I just need to secure this breakdown. Just don't lose the ball. Just get territory. And the second those sort of 3 things dominate your psychological group think, then your ability, you don't support a half break. You don't run for the offload. You don't call for the chip in behind. You don't run the reverse play when it's screaming at you to cancel the play, and the fear of making an error and also being left out to dry by your mates who go, you can't go off script, you've got to stay to the script. It becomes so staccato, and then you become totally reliant on the opposition getting a man sent off, an intercept, or something, and you're the Hail Mary you're hoping for.
Yeah, right. We're gonna end our Wales-Italy conversation with this question for you, Greens. Gatland, end of this Six Nations. Is he in charge? And the second point to that question, in addition to that question, is I think they've got a real challenge if Gatland goes as to who they recruit, because I'm not sure who currently is sticking their hand up for that job. So give me your thoughts about those two things.
I mean, there's a lot of people who want to coach international rugby. I sort of felt, if you read between the lines, when they were asking Ronan on the telly, I'd like a big job. I'd like a job with a country that would have a chance of winning a World Cup. You sort of felt like subliminal message, WRU, don't come and ask.
Right.
But you then might think about other coaches who, again, look, we're not there yet. It's a conversation I find difficult. I don't think I have the right to come out and say, get rid of Warren Gatland.
No, fair enough. I can say it. I think Gatland will be gone, and I think that it would be an easier decision if Wales actually weren't in such a hole, and that's why I asked the question about who's coming through, because I think the challenge for the WRU is going to be, well, hang on, we clear the decks with Gatland, but who is the man that is picking up?
I mean, you can list people.
Yeah, of course
Graham
you can list
Rowntree,
people.
Stephen Larkham, Stuart Lancaster.
But my question is, would any of those take the job?
And there was also Dave Rennie.
Yeah.
There's some coaches who've been booted out by other countries who find themselves out of work because things hasn't gone quite as well back in Australia or in France or in Ireland, and they just want to coach. They genuinely believe they could go in and make a difference.
Of course.
And that's why they are coaches, educators, upskillers. And so I don't think it's quite as simple as saying there's no one to take the job.
Yeah, no, agreed. Okay, we are moving away from Wales, Italy, and we are getting into Ireland and Scotland. And I will kick us off with just, I suppose, how impressed I was with Ireland, but how devastated I was to watch Scotland. And it felt like, the moment for me, really, and I know Ireland was dominating at this point anyway, but when Finn Russell and Darcy Graham go off, at that point, I was...
and you've gone to a 6-2 split.
Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
And there was a moment at 7-0, and it was about 20 minutes in, just before the Russell Graham thing, and Ireland were held up over the line at least 2 times. Yeah. And Scotland had been as bad as we've seen them, handling errors, coughing up territory and possession. You thought, it's another England-France here. Ireland aren't putting them away. And then you see the difference in mindset between Ireland, who just park an error, go again, man, what's the right call, trust the new call, and absolutely physically intimidated. For Scotland, the field looked like a mash tent and just bodies everywhere. Finn Russell was apparently approved, could have come back on. That's a brave decision.
It's an interesting decision as well, that, yeah.
Brave decision, and it's a massively trusting one of the coach to go, the docs know right, and if the docs say he might have passed, but he's wrong, I think that's the progress that makes in terms of the message that's sending out. Yeah. It's huge. They were very brave. I thought the young kid, Dobie, who's a scrum half, did great on the wing. McDowell had a pop in the centre. Ben White keeps trying, and he might be saying the third scrum half slot between.
I think he's decent.
Pushing Mitchell perhaps for the third scrum half slot. Dempsey carries hard. They went 11 points unanswered. They got themselves back into the game at 17-11, and then their aerial authority of Ireland just took it away. So Scotland, you're clutching at straws and you're looking at the remaining fixtures, and they've got to go to Paris. They've got to go to Twickenham, which won't hold any fear for them because of their track record against England. But on the back of what's just happened and England's confidence, you worry a little that surely, until we win the Calcutta Cup, I cannot talk about the Calcutta Cup. My Scottish friends will tell me, it's like, you're right, you hold it. I'm backing England to win that one. From what many Scottish friends of mine were hoping that the French game in Paris would be a Grand Slam decider, has suddenly become, wow, in the space of one game, who can we get fit? And what can we, too strong to say salvage, but on the back of the performance, they now probably more worried about performing at Twickenham rather than winning on the back of how much Ireland dominated them. So let's shift to Ireland. And I can't find a bloke who had a duff game. I think Finlay Beelam's in the reckoning now for Player of the Championship. And everyone was going, Ireland can't win without Tadhg Furlong. Lowe on the left, another challenger. I'm going to leave Prendergast sort of till last. Keenan, who, since he's come back from the sevens, felt a little bit off in the autumn. Looks back. I tell you who he reminds me of. Is it Wile E. Coyote?
He's got a bit of Cullen about him, I always think.
He's wow. I mean, that's...
I do feel that. Yeah.
Kids, if you want to look at something on YouTube, go and check out Christian Cullen's greatest clips reel and look at him at the Hong Kong Sevens when he's stuck behind his own line in Hong Kong and beats 6 Fijians and has the muscle endurance to go again and go the length.
Glides.
Ridiculous. Tadhg Byrne is a World 15 player. The back row didn't put a foot wrong. You're thinking, wow, they brought back Omani and just wins turnovers and is just a leader, an authority. Often people in rugby talk about never taking a backward step. If anyone ever epitomises, don't take a backward step, it's him. James Ryan had one of his best games. Van der Fleer is like a Terminator, just keeps going forward. And in the midfield, you're thinking, wow, they're taking Ringrose up. But that ability of those three, that combination of Aki, Henshaw, Ringrose, and the ability to play together for 50 minutes, drop one in, drop one out. And Ringrose is coming on off the bench. Conan's coming on off the bench. Sheehan's coming on off the bench. They've got 1,400 caps across their team. Yeah. Phenomenal. Jameson Gibson-Park is the most intelligent rugby player on the planet. And then Prendergast, who our mate Flipper has been telling us about in Ireland, who's only had 15 professional games. And you watched him in the autumn. He had one poor kick yesterday where they passed it back into 22 and he kicked it straight out. Other than that, I want my fly half not to come off with clean kit, but to have a heart rate monitor that never goes above 90. Yeah. And it might do, but I want him to look the whole time as if he's in complete control, the way Michael Liner looked like he was playing in an armchair.
Yeah. He's got it, hasn't he?
And Prendergast drops in, his early kicks, steepling up and under, flat 3-iron cross kick, steps inside, spiral. They ran at him, and he knocked him over. His to the line ball playing ability on the back of the 2 games I've seen so far. He's a 21-year-old lion this summer. Yeah,
I think the thing I was so impressed with was his just choice of pass, choice of kick, and the time the kid has on the ball, and people talk about time at 10. Oh, it looks like he's got so much time. But he also created time for himself on occasion, picking the right moment to step and let the guy go past him. Don't do that every time, but when you need to do it, and then put a 60-yard kick in. That's the thing that impressed me.
All great fly halves have a matador cape.
Totally.
And they say, keep coming. Keep coming. Yeah. You're running too fast. So just wait. Step to one side. You hit it's a Top Gun quote. Hit the brakes and he'll fly right by.
Yeah.
And then take the shot.
Picks his moments, doesn't
he? Really does.
Yeah, special kid.
And massive congratulations to Cian Healy, 66 Six Nations games.
That's just incredible.
Yeah. And by the way, he is probably Andrew Porter's biggest fan. And you think, well, that's weird. They're in the same position. Because Porter plays so long that Porter can play 60, 65 minutes. Cian just can stay in good shape, be a bull of a man, and know he's got 900 seconds 10 times a year. That's sort of 9,000 seconds is all I have to... my whole year is based around 9,000 seconds, and I stay in this team and I stay in this squad.
Pre-tournament, people were talking a little bit about just... an ageing squad, and have they got it?
People were vulnerable and thought,
right, but wow, have they answered those questions in these first 2 Six Nations rounds?
Yes, the I mean, their only threat, you feel now, is on the 8th of March.
Yeah.
When France roll into town, Ireland had 3-1 on to win the championship. The reality, they could lose that France game and still win the championship, but they don't. They want a slam.
Yeah.
The Marcus Smith drop goal at Twickenham denied them last year. They want to win 3 on the trot, which no one's done. And they want to keep stamping their authority on this tournament, on Lions selection, and continue to build towards 2027, where it's physically impossible for them to get the sort of draw in the World Cup that they got in 2019, where everyone says, well, you've got to beat everyone to win a World Cup. I say, well, you do, but you don't want. I mean, how you can be that good and get New Zealand in a quarter-final?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
We
had strong thoughts about that at the time, and I've still got them.
Having beaten South Africa. Anyway, sorry.
That's a whole other thing.
But that's the biggest question they've got to ask themselves or find an answer to in 2.5 years' time.
Yeah. Okay. We are now moving to Twickenham, where we were Greens. I mean, first thing to say, Twickenham was bouncing, absolutely bouncing on Saturday. It was just good to see the place doing that, genuine, unbridled joy in the stands.
And even before the game, I think it's a testament to the likeability of these lads. Losing 7 on the trot to Tier 1 nations. The way they've handled themselves and the way they've got within a score in all the games they have lost. How long were England leading that game for?
3 minutes.
4 minutes, 20 seconds.
Right.
Not
a lot, yeah.
And 2 of those minutes were conversions.
Yes.
So ball in play time, England were leading for 120 seconds.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we won. And in a tight horse race, getting that massive schnoz over that in front is all that matters. It goes on another 5 minutes. Who knows who wins? Doesn't matter. Which is why when we perhaps talk about mentality shortly, even more kudos and respect goes to South Africa for quarterfinal, semi-final, final, winning all 3 games per point.
Yeah.
That's mental strength. So I was in corporate hospitality and I was doing some work with the legend that is Martin Bayfield, Shauna Brown, Henry Arundel, Ed Jackson. And even before the game, to a person, we said, look, if this game is played 6 or 7 times, England win 1 and France win 6. But there is hope.
Yeah, there is.
And everyone was clinging to the fact before the game, they're going, well, we've lost the last 6. So the law of averages says if we keep staying in the fight, you get over the line. And then one of the discussion points is, what happens next now? Is it a one-off or can they sustain? So it's great to win, but it's criminal not to know why you've won.
Yep.
I think some of your harshest feedback sessions, if ever you're going to have a go at them, it's now because they're receptive to it and they're not fearful and they can look to the championship and they can go win. If we get to 21 points, it just takes one slip up for Ireland. And we could win this championship. And we were 60 seconds away from 0-2, Scotland rolling into the town, and all sorts of hypothesised questions that we talked about in Pod 1 that we don't have to talk about now. So
the irony of this is that this is a game that I'm not sure we should have won, but we have won.
Yep.
Fantastic, unbridled joy in the stands, great. But there were a couple of games over the course of the summer to New Zealand, which we all felt, no, we really should have won that game.
We have played better and lost.
And lost, absolutely. Yep. And so just the flip of the coin, thank God, and you said it straight after the game, and I think it's why you did say it. You said it wasn't about anything else other than that win. And I suppose the question I've got for you is the psychology of that win, because it felt like it was a monkey that just had to be... got off. And
England had so much scar tissue of losses, so the desperation to get them over the line. And people can say France dropped 4 balls, right? But to me, I don't think France's errors were unforced. I went back and watched the game. I watched it twice since, and you can almost go through it. Barassi up the left-hand side, fast pump, Bielbieri, cover on the inside, Slade coming. Finn Smith in the background, Bielbieri going, got to catch this because it's at full tilt. Second one, the massive counter-attack. They tap and go quick, go up the left. Finn Smith starts wrong side of the ruck, and you track him. And Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher in their Monday Night Shoe have a field day with a tracker, watching him run the hypotenuse of the pitch to get there. And by the way, he dives and wouldn't have got Dupont, but but he's in between him. And Dupont knows he's there.
Yeah, and he's eye-line.
So can't coast in.
Yeah.
The Movaka one, guess who it is again? Well, Slytone cuts off Bealbeary. And you think as soon as he rips that off Marcus, he's gone. Slytone cuts him off. He steps inside. Who's there? Finn Smith there. So Movaka's thinking, I've got to catch this and bump him. The Pinot one, Slade's going, Mitchell's in his eye line. He's forward. If he catches it, he still scores. From an English positive perspective, when the lad's reviewing the video, who will hear a lot of people saying, well, France weren't there. And I understand that argument. Mentally, they sort of looked as though, well, however many you score, we'll just score more. It was a Kevin Keegan, you score 7, we'll score 8. And eventually the time ran out on them because they would have scored again.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. But the errors weren't unforced.
Agreed.
That's one thing.
Can I just pick up on one moment? Because these little moments get lost in games, I always feel, but I don't think should be lost amongst people that really think about the game. And it was, we're 10-7 down, and it's a kick that all day long, either of the Smiths knocks over, and we go to the corner. Which I don't know the exact stats for our driving line out, but I know it's 1 in 8, 1 in 10 that we might go over the line. And for me, and in the Woodward era as well, you take those points.
Casada in Italy would take the points.
No, regardless.
And by the way, I would take the points.
Yeah.
Those.
But I think Ireland would take the points mostly. But it's
scenario. Not. So I get you. And by the way, it's another, Marcus v Finn, Stuart Barnes v Rob Andrew, Danny Cipriani v Flood. There are people who will be on either side of that fence. And no matter what happens, on the kicking for points thing, I'm on your side, but I'm going to give you the counter argument.
Yeah.
Marcus missed twice. One was a penalty.
Not at that point, but later in the game.
He missed from that slot. So it's times in a game. It's where it is and its vibe. And
that's
but the interesting thing for the leadership thing, and it comes into the leadership question of Mara, that's his first win as England captain, and he's such a totemic figure, and you want to follow him for what he does. I don't even know what he says, but you just want to follow him in because, what a competitor, what a winner. I'm interested when, I think the penalty you're talking about, he got these 17 England vice-captains that they have together. I think there's 3 or 4. And long judge, like, woo. I think there's certain decisions. I get it. And again, I'm torn. Should you be having a meeting that almost needs to be facilitated by an external consultancy company to decide whether you're taking 3 or not?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong. I sit in the camp that I would take 3. In World Cups, I double down on the fact that I think you're a fool if you don't take 3 in a World Cup.
For me, I think there's rhythms to game and there's moments to game. And the guy that I was sitting next to knows his rugby as well. And the moment they chose to go to the corner at that point in the game, we both went.
And the line-out was struggling.
And the line-out was struggling. And 2 minutes later, we're down the other end. We're dropping out underneath our own sticks.
Yeah.
And therefore, it sort of turned out that it was. But I actually said to the guy sitting next to me, I said, I don't, whether they score or not, for me, that is the wrong decision at this point in the game. And it felt to me that Mara's a young captain in that scenario. And I don't believe Jono, anyone within that 2003 group. And maybe that was just because of your philosophy. But I don't think it is just philosophy. I think it's just about understanding.
Referees have changed. I think referees reward attacking sides more often. If you were playing in a game and Alan Rowland was reffing, you almost didn't want the ball. Not using all the subs. Don't use them if you don't need to.
Yeah, that
2
was
subs,
big...
Chandler Cunningham South and Harry Randall.
Yeah.
Mitchell's got the vibe of this game. Totally. Just because I know people say finishers and it's become this word that therefore it's a 23-man game. No, it's however many people you need to win the game.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's 23.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's 15. And data can tell you lots of things about players, but it can't look in their souls. And some people you take off because their data's dropping, and others you just go, no matter what,
keep him on.
Leave him on the field.
Yeah.
Leave him on the field. Penalty count after the 50th minute, no pens. Tom Curry hasn't given away a penalty in the Six Nations. Scramble defence. If we had our old system, we lost that game by 43 points to 10. In Marseille last year, we got turned over. We all fly up on the outside. They scored 2-14, the 2 7-pointers. Now they backed off and they forced Dupont to drop. And they forced Penaud to drop by just staying alive. Heart, which you'd say is non-negotiable, but the spirit they show for each other, I think the Irish call it TNT. TNT moments, takes no talent. Set piece, back end of the second half, which when George comes on, which brilliant. For me tells me, and you think this is counterintuitive, because he's our best baller and our most intelligent front rower, not quite in the athletic shape that he was when he scored from 40 yards out against Australia in 2016. You 100% want him on the field minutes 50 to 80. You do not start with Jamie George. Games are decided in that moment. Power v power at the start, stick Cow and Dickie on. Last 30 minutes, Jamie George is going to become like Cian Healy. Jamie George is now going to get 700 caps because his ability to hit double top under pressure, his ability to come in when the scrum is fatigued and a referee go, it's all right, Jamie's on now, England won't go backwards. His ability to run an angle, which is harder at the start of a game because he's got a 0 to 40 time of 11 and a half seconds. But because everyone's so knackered by the end, he runs past everyone and trundles through.
Yeah. Well, he made the break.
Correct, off that to give to Tom Curry, who just got caught down. So, set piece under pressure. One chance, one shot, one win. The authority and the calmness when, and it'll feed into the negatives, we haven't made a line break all day, really. Our backs moves have looked bang average. And we narrow them up with a great line-out drive, which means Le Garec and Penaud are tight to that bottom breakdown. All their forwards are in, which means you then count, crikey, England have only got 5 defenders to mark the whole width of the field. We have 6 attackers. The Mitchell, so the calmness to run that play, I think that was a massive boost to that English backline.
Yeah,
breakdown, immense. I should have started with selection, much better balance to the team. We've talked about it. We've banged that drum. Willis, some of the close quarter yardage gains he was making in an Aldrich and a Doris and a Kieran Reid and a Vermeulen style, as in ball around me, 2 or 3 defenders in front of me. If I don't make 2 or 3 yards, we are kicking under pressure. You know, total yardage for the game, Tom Willis might be 12 in 6 carries, perhaps the 6 most important carries of the game. So selection, massive. Rope-a-dope to stay within a score, to give yourself a chance of winning was special. And the backfield work of Marcus and Alex Mitchell to dig us out of holes twice because of their pace and youth and heads up, whereas with different players in that backfield might have got caught and then were swamped. So positives, right. You can't have all positives because a lot of people are saying if France created that many chances, God, we kicked badly. I mean, out of hand. We were bang average poor and kicked across field with a high up and under a couple of times to Ramos, and you're thinking, oh my God, what are you doing? But the kick chase, extraordinary. Ollie Lawrence won a penalty from it, but it was a terrible kick. And on another day, you're in all sorts. A nudge threw in behind early on that he had the touch of a rhinoceros. And this is all when he's learning, because he goes on to be man of the match. He was outstanding, but as a group, didn't kick great. Long kickoff. When we go short kickoffs, we're unbeatable.
Yeah.
And then we go long kickoffs and we kick it to Aldrich and he marches forward and Dupont kicks it 70 yards. Yeah. Like, I get it, you want territory. If your recovery rate of short kickoffs is 80%, which it was in Ireland and it seemed to be against France, go short all the time.
Yeah, correct.
It won us the game. Early disconnected defence that could have been exposed. Freeman too tight on it. So Freeman played well early on. 2-on-2. Turns it into 2-on-1 by getting way too tight on the inside and Barassi races past him. Freeman's bagged 2 tries. I know Bielbiri's on 4, but I'm looking at the fixtures. Freeman's 9-1 to be leading try scorer in the Six Nations. Just at 9s, I might have a little nibble on him because he's going to play in all the last 3 games. and we've got Scotland at home, we've got Italy at home, and we're away in Cardiff. You fancy being a winger in those games, the way there's a confidence. Two last things, they're both connected. Sounds hard. Just no threat with the ball in hand. All our threat
came from
kicks.
grubbers, yeah.
Finn Smith saw something, goes back, had kicks to Freeman, brilliant in the air. Territory in behind, kick, they make an error. We get the scrum on the right-hand side, and Freeman then, and Lawrence scores under the post. Kick. Our ability to we're talking about disconnect. And by the way, when Jalibert was on, they run this 4-man play. Now, most people would have a sort of little triangle, if I can sort of talk you through it.
Yeah.
10 leading, short runner coming hard off him, winger out the back.
Yeah.
Beautiful, and most teams do that. France, they're not the only ones, but they do it magnificently. They run Jalibert at the front, Aldrich comes short, wingers out the back, but also the centre's just a yard to his right and slides. And so Jalibert can either hit Penaud round the back, for this example, or go straight across to Mofana. So 12-13 is so difficult to defend. At the start of the second half, they very nearly scored again when Lawrence and Slade were exposed. And you're thinking, God, what's happened there? It's just brilliant rugby. Whereas England, we get into it, we get around the corner, we have some pace, and when Finn gets early ball, and that's why I was so pleased with the try, the irony that we win with a first phase move. Because before that, in the previous 79 minutes...
Didn't do it once.
No, and what then happens, I think 10, 12, 13, 15, all then kick badly under pressure. On the back of running a play, no crikey, no bailout, Mofana, Barassi in front of me, bang, charge down. Just not the accuracy or the threat. The accuracy and the threat is Wigglesworth's job, and that's his biggest challenge, to work with these young lads. And clearly, Marcus doesn't play a whole heap of fullback. Slytome is young, Finn's its first start, so I get it. But that's, if you'd want things that didn't go well, that they'll look in the review and go, how can we be slicker? How can we sharper? How can we turn a hip in defence of an opponent? How we can make someone nibble? How can we get those disconnects happening more often, like happened in minute 79, 5 yards out? Then that might be something that limits us from blowing teams away. What happens when you don't blow teams away? You get caught in a one-score game.
Yeah, and it goes the other way. Yeah.
On the wrong side of it.
Totally.
So, one last thing.
Go on then.
One last thing. And I'm sure they picked it up. England were in front of the kicker on 3 restarts, and the refs have been told to pick up on it. 2 of them we won them back and ended up in Freeman scores. It's actually not the lads who are winning the ball back. It's slower lads on the inside. And it's like, lads, oh no. And the last thing you want when you go, France go 18-12 up, which was when the really bad one in front of the kicker was, they get a scrum in the midfield, they bang it in the bottom right, and then it is 25-12, and then the game is over. So, I mean,
simple things.
You'll say I'm a pedant, but the refs have been told to pick up, and it's happened in the Premiership. Yeah. And I was watching it going, on the replay, I was going,
And lads, on another day, that does get picked up. Once again, helicopter, Greens, because when Borthwick started his reign, I think what we talked about was, let's just get back to making England really, really tough to beat again. Yeah. And I feel like, regardless of this game, whether we've got a win here, we are that now. Like, we've been that, actually, for the last year. Great, tick. The question is, can we now move to Scotland next week and put a convincing victory together against a team that we haven't beaten convincingly for 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, look, I can imagine a team meeting now, and everyone loves Austin, right? If we had a team meeting now, or Austin was in this squad, the only thing he'd say now is 15 points, 3 games. Non-negotiable. Look at who we're playing. Look where we are.
Well, I agree with us.
I hope there are the characters in that team that will understand, yes, it doesn't come without hard work. But now the psychology is, let's get to 21 points. And if anyone slips up, and if France go to Dublin and turn them over, and it's chucking it down with rain, and France win 12-9, and there's no bonus points, England win the championship.
Yeah. And listen, do you think that this team has that psychology within the management and within the players? Like, from what you know about this group, do you feel like?
Yeah, I do. I do that, man. But It's having that mindset and then being equipped and training well enough and being hard on each other in the review, and Wigglesworth holding them to account. They were 90 seconds away from two of the most miserable weeks in camp you could ever hope to have.
Yes.
The press are killing you. They want rid of the coach. They want rid of the coach. They want the CEO gone. Well, everyone wants a whole new team in. It's a Lions year. None of you are going on a Lions tour. To bouncing into camp.
Yeah. And by the way, just a quick point for those of you that haven't looked at any of the French press. I mean, the French have been absolutely ruthless. I mean, Galtier, they're calling for Galtier's head. He's wasted the golden generation of French talent. You know, this is off the back of the World Cup as well. And you're like, crikey! If we think we've got it bad, or Borthwick thinks he's got it bad, imagine being a Frenchman. I mean,
did they go for him? Did they?
Oh, they have properly gone for him. Yeah.
And what a generation of players they've got. And God, I'd like some of those players to be English.
Yeah, 100%.
You would. Anyway, so England bouncing into camp, the mood and the confidence and the mentality change that makes, and the confidence that gives you next time you're on the field, next time you run out at Twickenham, you bounce out.
Yeah.
Absolutely bounce
Great.
out.
I'm going to ask you for a prediction. I want you to predict the points that England are going to finish
21.
the Six Nations with. You are backing them. 21 points we're going to end with.
Yeah.
Second place to Ireland.
Well, Ireland get 5 against Wales and they get 5 against Italy, so they go to 20. And even if they lose to the French, they don't get 0. They don't get donated by the French at the Aviva. So I understand why the bookies have got them 3-2. What I don't get with the bookies is why France are shorter odds to win this title than us. Yeah. And they've got to go to Dublin.
By the way, so you would make a very good bookie. Why?
It's all the bookies are just good mathematicians.
Well, exactly. You're a brilliant mathematician and quite a good rugby brain. You should be if you're looking for another career.
The account's doing all right. Although I have to admit, I did think Scotland would lose by less than 6 points.
Yeah,
that didn't go so well.
Yeah,
you can't win them all, otherwise I wouldn't be here, would I?
Yeah, I had a few quid on that. Right, we are getting into Lions 15,
and this is just from the weekend, right?
Just from the weekend, just from round 2 Six Nations.
I mean, I've got so many Irish.
Yeah.
So I know England won. I've got some English lads in there, but one of the most dominant 40 minutes I've really seen against a Scotland side that I think are quite good. Porter, Kelleher, Beelum. George Martin gets in the second row for me. We lost a couple of lineouts that lift, throw. I don't blame them on him. The physicality he brought to that contact area was huge with Tag Byrne, Tom Curry 6, Van der Fleer 7, Caelan Doris 8.
Yeah.
Jack Morgan, you keep getting honourable mentions. You're going on the playing kid. And just, if you get beat by the Italians, it's I nearly picked it, nearly doesn't matter, in front of Van der Fleer, but just Van der Fleer he's like a cube.
Yeah, no, you can't. He has to be there.
Keeps moving forward. Jameson Gibson Park.
By a quick word on it, he was immaculate in terms of most intelligent rugby player. He is there.
I'm going to come back to 10.
Oh.
Lowe, Lawrence, Jones, Freeman, Keenan. Midfield was hard. Aki, Henshaw, Ringrose. Yes, I was. I think some 2 or 3 great turnovers. Freeman, things to iron out, but he scores big tries. In that crossfield kick at 18-12 when the game's sliding away from England.
Yeah, he's great in the end.
Keenan's back to his best. Lawrence, very powerful.
Yeah. And
surrounded by some good people. Again, tough on Aki, he was big. 10, I had Finn Smith, but I've got Prendergast, and they were both man of the match. You're going to wait for an answer, aren't you? Here? Who do I pick there?
I'll tell you who I pick. I picked Prendergast. I thought he was a touch of class.
He was a touch of class. Am I judging it on the fact that he had a different platform? Could Finn Smith have done it? Did Finn Smith he made the half little pick up and dart that Lawrence try? He gives the assist for Elliot Daly. He does the cross kick for Freeman.
Yeah, the little double pump for Daly as well. Yeah, no,
he comes on.
Look, I'm not saying he wasn't great.
When he hasn't had it. Finn Smith.
You've just done that to go against me.
No, but so I've been sort of backing him for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I can't bring in that necessarily credit in the bank with him. two outstanding fly halves.
Do you know what?
Finn Smith.
The nice thing about both those two lads is, Prendergast has been talked about since he was 15, 16, and Finn Smith very, very similar, actually. I remember listening to people talking about Finn Smith years ago, and their kids that look like they're going to have a long time.
Finn Baxter posted something, and I sort of coached teams that Finn was involved in.
Yeah.
And Finn Smith put something in that reminds me of the under-15 National Schools Cup final. And I didn't realise I'm assuming on the back of that, Finn had played against us at Twickenham. So was it, in which case, he must be a Warwick schoolboy. And they had a really good team. They had an outstanding 7. It was the 7 I remembered, actually, Finn Smith. I didn't remember you.
But we've talked about school, right? It's important, right? That National Schools Cup, and you look at...
Intercontinental Tires Cup that sponsors the good, the bad, the rugby.
Yeah, but I absolutely love looking at some of the school stuff. The international school stuff, and it's popping off on social.
Schools and uni stuff. It's all great.
It's really good. Okay, let's finish our pod with our competition. Here is your winning top. If you win it, Greens will sign it if you want him to sign it. I mean, if you want.
£4.50 to the eBay value.
And all we want you to do to win this competition is subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave us a comment.
And you know what won't do? Could have the little thing. Why don't you go Finn Smith or Prendergast? Let me know where your colours lie.
Yeah, we'll have a little poll then.
Finn Smith or Prendergast. So that's what that gets you included in the conversation.
And then we will
tag, subscribe, like. What are these other things you can do?
All three of those things. All three of those things, and we will pull the winner from a hat randomly from someone that has commented.
And you know what? We like numbers, and I just had a look.
You love them.
Again, from that round, we had over 1 million views from you guys. Didn't we?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Over 1 million, 1 million views.
Not, by the way, not exclusively on pod. That's across
our
the
platform. That's what this
channel.
is. It's just another limb.
It is
to your brainchild.
It is. So we appreciate that enormously. By the way, we are going to get a guest in.
But I was going to have Jeff Wilson, Goldie, Jimmy Nesbitt, but we both work for a living.
I know.
So this is just a little bit of fun that we've seen quite a few people have come on the ride for. So,
but you've got 2 weeks, Greens.
Again,
now.
I've got a job.
Well,
this is Monday night, and why don't you get a mate?
Really?
No. You get someone from Henley Hawk's third team.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's about rugby mates.
True. Oh, listen, I can get any entertainment in. Maybe we'll get Hoggy the Butcher in. He'd be quite good entertainment.
If England lose to Scotland, he would be good value.
Oh, God, he would. Listen, thanks very much for joining us, gang, and we will see you next time.
2 weeks, because we don't do it every week, and there's no Six Nations next week, right? We're a Six Nations pod.